So yeah, this piece from Variety released randomly. Quite an unusual thing. This goes alongside their article with an interview with Rachel Zegler. Toxic fandom: how Hollywood is battling fans who are just out for blood, from social media boot camps to super fan focus groups. Right. So this is Hollywood declaring war on fans. Amazing.
What's a social media boot camp? Never heard of that.
I've got no idea.
They're making it up as they go along.
It's probably another, consultancy group like, the chick thing. What do you call it? Sweet Baby Inc. or something. It's probably a consultancy.
Well, let's see what they say, because they'll unpack some of this stuff. So on August 28th, Amanda Stenberg, the lead of the Star Wars series The Acolyte, posted an 8.5-minute video to her Instagram stories about Lucasfilm's abrupt decision not to pick up the show for a second season, just a month after the season 1 finale streamed on Disney Plus, because it was bad. It's not a huge shock for me, Stenberg said. Since the series was announced in 2020, she continued, we started experiencing a rampage of, I would say, hyper-conservative bigotry and vitriol, prejudice, hatred, and hateful language towards us. This is all just nonsense, absolute nonsense. In other words, The Acolyte was the latest high-profile target of toxic fandom. The catch-all term for when fan criticism curdles from good faith dissatisfaction into a relentlessly negative, often bigoted online campaign against either the project or its stars or creative leaders. In a franchise economy increasingly dependent upon established audience devotion to drive the bottom line, the threat of toxic fandoms poisoning that enthusiasm has become a seemingly intractable headache of almost every studio, and it's only getting worse. Note the wording there. In a franchise economy increasingly dependent upon the established audience's devotion, the threat of toxic fandoms poisoning that enthusiasm is a headache for the studio. So, sorry, can't possibly have dissenting voices. Can't possibly let some negative voices poison the well. Oh, no. Just, it's nonsense. This is drivel. Anyway, I guess this comical as hell, right? So they got some comments here from veteran executives. It comes with the territory, but it's gotten incredibly loud in the last couple of years, says a veteran marketing executive at a major studio. People are just out for blood, regardless. They think the purity of the first version will never be replaced. Or you've done something to upset the canon of a beloved franchise, and they're going to take you down for doing so. Yeah, that's fully justified. Because as fans, we have a sense of ownership over this property. Like, there is, there is a sense of ownership from fandoms. We have catapulted it to success. You owe us, we owe you. It's a mutually beneficial relationship. But increasingly what we see from Hollywood is them spitting in the fans' face and resenting them for being fans.
Yeah, and I think that's the big problem. So for example, if you were to go back at this moron that wrote this, you would try to cite something that is a favorite film of neo-Marxists, right? So I can't think of one right now because I don't watch that kind of drivel. But, find something that is that kind of, neo-Marxist love, and you pick it apart, and you remake it, deconstruct their neo-Marxism, and you make it into a classic hero's journey. And they're going to have a hissy fit. If fans are fans for a reason, and the fact that you want to, repurpose this for a neo-Marxist political messaging, type of a thing, of course, the people who originally liked the material are going to hate what you did. You're a freaking idiot. And if you want to call that toxic, well, what you're doing is actually the toxic thing by repurposing something that has a built-in fan base. It's and again, right now in the media, we have toxic positivity, that blows smoke up every studio's ass when it comes to the crappy products that they release. Disney's got, toxic positivity in the form of pixie dusters who huff as much pixie dust as they possibly can. They're like cocaine fiends on a bender, on a full-on binge, trying to snort up as much garbage Disney that's out there now. They're willing to pay anything for it, even though that basically the stuff they're huffing at this point is drain cleaner. Anyway, It is what it is.
Well, guess worse. The practice of mobbing sites like Rotten Tomatoes and IMDb with negative user reviews, which gained mainstream attention following the premiere of 2017 Star Wars The Last Jedi, it was garbage. And an entire YouTube ecosystem is devoted to declaring projects like The Marvels and The Boys woke garbage. Among, well, for starters, The Marvels was woke garbage. Okay, right, it was absolute crap. The only good thing about it was Brie Larson's tits, in a white top. It's fantastic. But this is just insane. Like now they're going to start. This is the clamping down on dissenting voices that is inevitable with these things. Just as frequently, the backlash begins before the project has seen the light of day. That's because if you release stills or we hear bits of narrative, you release a teaser trailer, like it's as if Hollywood studios have forgotten what a teaser trailer's intention is. A teaser trailer's intention is to market the film, right? It's to ascertain whether you, the viewer, want to go watch that bloody film or not. So if it doesn't resonate with you, the viewer, you also have the opinion to go, yeah, that looks like shit, actually. Like, what is wrong with Hollywood when they don't realize that that's actually one of the core purposes of releasing marketing material, right? The whole point of it is for you to go, yeah, I want to watch that, or no, that's crap. It's not really for me. And don't we hear time and time again where people go, it wasn't made for you? Okay, so can't I say it's not made for me then? Can't I warn other people that it's not made for me? And probably them as well? Like, what's wrong with these idiots? So anyway, so this is all hilarious, obviously. They talk about death threats aimed at Leslie Jones during the press tour of 2016's Ghostbusters. I can't even remember what happened about that anymore. They're talking about black elves and dwarfs in the Lord of the Rings of Power. That's perfectly reasonable statements to be made, actually. Right? You understand where Tolkien and why Tolkien created what he created. It's perfectly reasonable to go, there shouldn't be black elves. There shouldn't be black dwarfs. Right? Perfectly reasonable statements to make. Perhaps the greatest irony of this phenomenon is the disproportionate impact these toxic fandoms have relative to their actual number. The vast majority of any fandom are casual fans, says John Van Kitters, VP of Star Trek brand development. Oh, because they know everything about good numbers, don't they? Star Trek, Jesus Christ. Who's been with a storied franchise since the 1990s. The number of people who live and die on their franchises are very, very few. And then those who come after things that they espouse to love with venom are a really, really tiny subset of that already smaller subset of fandom. It's just much easier to see it now. I don't know that it's really that much broader than where things were in the 1995. It's just that the bullhorn wasn't there. We're not doing a very good job.
And I just don't think that's particularly true, right? I mean, it can be true, but often isn't.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. But why would you have, say, Star Wars go from over $2 billion when The Force Awakens released to The Rise of Skywalker just hitting $1 billion? Why, like, to reference a previous article we covered, why would that go from one to the other then? If the people that really love, like, you can't say the majority of fandom are just casual fans. If you lose 50, well, you lose 50% of your overall revenue between.
But they hate logic and numbers and facts. Come on now. You have to explain it to them, appealing to their feelings, because that's how these people go about things. They don't use their brain. They use their emotions to process stuff. They don't have a logical mind. They are incapable of processing those numbers and the way that you're going about it, Nate. So you got to work on that. Okay, you need to do better.
When they say it can only ever be a very, very small percentage of any given audience that is sort of genuinely sort of toxic, like unnecessarily, unreasonably toxic. Well, no, if the product's bad enough, it won't be a very small percentage of them, will it? I mean, take the Acolyte or Ashoka or something. My experience has been like on the internet, dealing with Twitter pretty much daily, and just dealing with comments on content I've made for years now, right? As a very general rule, people are largely fairly reasonable and honest, right? Yeah. Take any given chat, even your chat, Nate. If they don't agree with you or your take's crap, you'll hear about it.
Oh yeah.
But if it's not, they'll let you know that as well. And yeah, of course, sometimes there are. Well, there quite often is a small set of people that are sort of maybe might not be quite the right word, but are just ideologically opposed to everything that you are and all the content that you're making. Okay, and they're always going to be snipey and bitchy and unreasonable, right? But most people, the vast majority of people, are sort of fairly honest and fairly reasonable, and they might not pull any punches, but if you've got a big chunk of your chat, your audience, your comments that say something's crap, it almost certainly is because it is crap. There's no way around that, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah, 100%.
But as Coach said, they won't. They can't face up to that truth. They can't face that reality head on.
This next part confirms that quite a lot. It's quite comical, really. So it says, for some, combating that bullhorn amounts to acting as if they can't hear it.
Yeah.
Not even going to can't hear the negativity, can't see it. No. Particularly when it's a negative, toxic conversation, we don't even engage, says a TV marketing executive. Like with toxic people, you try to not give it too much oxygen. One principal concern is that reaching to these kind of attacks risks alienating fans who are unhappy with creative choices about a franchise, but haven't tipped over into abusive behavior. So a studio may attempt to amplify friendlier voices instead. We'll reply to comments that are positive and elevate those things, says the TV exec. So they're just ignoring the negativity, basically. Yeah. Outrageous.
They're ignoring their customers.
Oh yeah, okay, it gets better. It gets better, guys. It gets better. Still, toxic fandoms have grown so pernicious that they've become a fact of life for many, and so powerful that that's because you've been producing crap. And so powerful that while talent executives and publicists will privately bemoan the issue, fear of inadvertently triggering another backlash kept several studios from speaking for this story, even on background. As one rep put it, it's just a lose-lose. Yeah, shut up. Shut up, you cowards. Those who did talk with Variety all agreed that the best defense is to avoid provoking fandoms in the first place. But that's wrong, though. This is them gaslighting, because they try to do hate marketing.
Yeah.
We know that. We know that they do hate marketing campaigns. They purposely try to do those things. So that's completely false. In addition to standard focus group testing, studios will assemble a specialized cluster of superfans to assess possible marketing materials for a major franchise project. They're very vocal, says the studio exec. They will just tell us, if you do that, fans are going to retaliate. These groups have even led studios to alter the projects. If it's early enough and the movie isn't finished yet, we can make those kind of changes. Several studio insiders say they often put their talent through a social media boot camp in some cases, when a character is intentionally challenging a franchise's status quo. So
that's your problem.
They're admitting it.
Yeah. We're intentionally ruining this.
And they know that people won't like it. Oh, what idiots. Studios will, with the actors' permission, take over their social media accounts entirely.
Because the thing is, in a normal business or in a normal person's mind, right? You want feedback, and then you react to the negative feedback. The last thing you do is either one, ignore all feedback, particularly if it's negative, or two, gaslight people. Right? That's the worst thing you can do. Like at Lotus Eaters, for example, every now and again we do a bit of content which our core audience, just really don't like. Right, and so it's a no-brainer. Let's not do that again. It's just an absolute no-brainer. Right, I can't think of an example, but every now and again we do something where, even 20% of the audience, 30% of the audience are like sort of strongly negative. It's like, well, we won't touch that again with a barge pole. Obviously not. We're in the business of trying to grow an audience and make a bit of money if possible. Right.
Yeah.
So it's madness. It's madness. What they're
crazy,
doing,
isn't it?
Yeah.
But they say here, later that year, the cast of The Rings of Power condemned the relentless racism, threats, harassment, and abuse some of our castmates of color being subjected to on a daily basis. But that's the other thing that they use, the studios, as a tactic, is that they will purposely wheel out these individuals that they've cast and use them as like a black man shield, basically, because that's what they do. They're like, oh, you just hate it because you're racist. It's like, no, mate, there's loads of other issues. Like, what are you talking about? Just nonsense. Absolute nonsense. And it says here, there is one other way to handle toxic fans on the internet. Stay off it. I'm not online, so I'm protected, says frequent Marvel star Elizabeth Olsen. No one hates her anyway. Generally, it's a lot of positive experiences of making kids happy. I ignore the other stuff. I like how they ended with like someone who's not divisive remotely at the end. Yeah, she's not on the internet, okay? Fine, sure. She's missing out on the adoration, I guess. But what do you think of that? I thought this was a brilliant article.
It made
brilliantly funny.
Did you say at one point the best thing about some Marvel movie or something was Brie Larson's boobs?
Yes.
It did make me think the only thing I liked about Ashoka was you saw Mary Elizabeth Winstead's butt in some tight trousers one time. Like, that's literally the only thing that was good. Like, the only thing I can remember about it.
Oh, brilliant.
Right. Yeah, these people are mad. They're sort of mad. But whilst you've got someone like, for example, Bob Iger, or it's not just Disney, right? It's a lot of different companies. Until they sort of accept reality and they come back to doing the business of business, until that's their paradigm again, this will never end. But they've decided to take ideology above pleasing an audience stroke making money. So until that paradigm is realigned, if ever, this is just going to go on. This will just go on and on and on. And well, I just hope that the biggest studios will crumble and die. Hopefully, it's for the best, then, isn't it?
Oh, I agree entirely. The amount of gaslighting on here is just
Hollywood as an entity should die. Sorry, Nate, go ahead.
No, that was it. It's just it's just the gaslighting's insane. The fact that they even say how Hollywood is battling fans. I mean, it's just, you shouldn't be.
Yeah,
you should be trying to appease them. They're your demographic. They're your cash cow, right? You please them, you get money. You're a business. What the hell is wrong with you? What happened to customers always right?
And I know Hollywood is sort of a monolith, right? There's not one thing that is Hollywood, right? The term Hollywood is some sort of cover-all, catch-all terms, I think. But we know it's becoming more and more apparent, isn't it, over the last 5-10 years, that since its inception, or for a long time, it's been sort of a den of villainy and vice, hasn't it? It's been absolutely riddled with what you could charitably describe as sex criminals.
Yeah,
right?
Utter degenerates.
Yeah. And that it is, and in fact has been, but it's obviously a lot more in these days, a vehicle for subversion and perversion. And so, yeah, it can die. It can die then. I hope it does. It's something like a canker or a parasite on Western civilization. We'll be better off without it, please. Anyway, I've got
more indie productions.
I'll climb
more
down.
indie productions.
Yeah, right. Yeah, let's have some indie writing, some indie productions, some proper stories getting told again. Yeah.
Culture, you look like you want to say some stuff, buddy.
Well, I'm with Bo. I think that this is going to self-destruct itself, and it has been now for the last maybe 9 to 10 years. We've been watching the deterioration of interest in the things that are being produced by mainstream media and Hollywood. You're seeing fewer and fewer people engaged in the product that's actually out there, and people like myself and this guy up here, Nate, are watching things in order to kind of gatekeep, which is what we have to get back to doing across the board. So I will be watching the Joker 2 film to report back on whether or not it's even worth watching on streaming, because I don't believe it's worth the $12 to go see it in a theater at a matinee. But I'll be seeing it and I'll be reporting back. I will be talking about it quite plainly in language everybody can understand and breaking it down from the, not just the enjoyment aspect, but whether or not it's even good cinema. Because I don't believe that a lot of people get an opportunity to be exposed to that these days. Whereas a film that is reportedly quite good, this Wild Robot movie, is not getting the kind of love and praise it deserves, despite the fact that it didn't cost a lot of money and it's very well done. We need more original properties, book adaptations that are of quality that represent the material well. And that's the biggest problem with toxic fandom. Well, why are there fans in the first place? Because when they encountered the original IP, it was in its purest form. Everything that is a franchise came from the success that it gained because of fans. So attacking the fans, the people that liked the material the way it was, presented initially, and the way it may have been presented in books and other forms, people kind of wrap their arms around it. It would be like trying to change Douglas Adams' work, now that he's no longer with us, and not having a response from fans. That would be, I would think, quite militant and reactionary in a way that could, essentially destroy a media company that tried to do that. So again, when I look at these kinds of articles, this Adam Very guy certainly isn't paying very close attention to where all of this material came from in the first place, and that calling out the fan base that basically made it into what it is today, which of course includes Star Wars, is asinine, because this material wouldn't exist for these media companies to exploit if it didn't have fans in the first place. So again, they lack an understanding of where this material came from and why it's important to the fans and why they are so upset when you change it, and you do it for ridiculous reasons of using it as a platform in almost every single case nowadays. But like I said, Hollywood is in the process of self-destruct. We're all watching it, and I'm kind of enjoying it. And I will cover it to the extent that it still exists and or changes, which I think, if you listen, they know that they need to change, which is why they have these types of defenders out there trying to, serve it up as, oh, it's just these toxic fans. You mean the majority of people that used to enjoy this material? Sure.
Good way of putting it, actually.
Someone in the chat said something I thought was very interesting. Basically said, they need us more than we need them. Right?
Yeah.
Absolutely. God. I mean, if that's not the truth distilled down to its purest form, we don't need them at all. We don't need them in our lives. Like, humanity was fine, if not healthier, without any film or TV. Right? They need us. They don't exist without us.
Yeah. It's amazing that they don't understand that as the exchange. That is the relationship. Yeah. They have to provide something worth watching. If you don't, like, long term, you just don't exist. That's it. You're gone. Bizarre. Absolutely bizarre. But what a great way to end on that subject there. We got a